How significant is this consensus by key factions to hold elections, the first in Libya since the end of Gaddafi's dictatorship, and the vote for an interim parliament in July of 2012? I'm joined now by Cole Bockenfeld. He's advocacy director for the Project on Middle East Democracy. So let me pose that question to you. What are we to make of this? I said early elections, but it's been 2 years on now.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of frustration building in Libya with the GNC. It's been 2 years. They've had a long period to really address a lot of the country's problems. And frankly, a lot of Libyans aren't seeing many results and are really looking for some new voices in there.
And we've seen weapons all over the place. We've seen assassinations. I mean, if you were to look at the landscape now, how does it look?
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem with Libya, unlike a lot of countries in the Arab Spring with the transitions, is after the fall of the dictator, there was almost nothing left to hold the state together. There were no institutions in place. So that's, I think, what we're seeing. A lot of the problems with militias, the violence, and so on, is a struggle for people to really build those institutions, to build what a new state should look like.
You saw the U.S. and the French go in there to help with the drive to get rid of Gaddafi, but then, as you say, the institutions collapse. What should the international community be doing to help prop up Libya? Or should they be doing it?
One of the big initiatives they've launched recently is the Europeans and the Americans are all working together to train a new general purposes force in Libya, about 5,000 to 8,000 security forces to sort of be the beginnings of a new national army in Libya. Those are very small numbers, but it's a key start to sort of really work to pull militias together under some sort of national umbrella force. And I think, lending some support and building the strength of that body will be really important to stabilizing the country.
When historians sit down to write the history of the Arab Spring, I mean, we look at Libya, we look at Egypt, we look at these countries that are really struggling after their leaders fall. What are we to make of the Arab Spring? I mean, is it still a mixed bag? I mean, is it too early to say what the results are? Or?
It's definitely too early. I mean, if you compare this to transitions in Eastern Europe, I mean, these were 10, 20-year projects before you could really say what direction some of these countries were going in. I mean, you look at Tunisia next door to Libya, things are going very well there. They've made a lot of political progress. You look at the other side in Egypt, things are really turning the other way. With every sort of variation in the middle. So I think the jury is still out, and it'll be a long haul.
Even in Tunisia, though, we've seen some assassinations. What are we to make of this fledgling democracy? I mean, where do you see it maybe 2, 3, 10 years down the road?
Well, I think Tunisia's really got the best chance to consolidate progress. They've made a lot of political progress. The major forces there have made compromises to move the country forward. But the same issues that were at the root of these revolutions, namely the economic problems, are still very much there. Unless some of these countries can make the right economic reforms with the backing by the international community, this progress is very fragile, and we could see that rolled back pretty soon.
When you see somebody like Gaddafi, who did rule with a certain grip, and then he's gone, and the same, I guess you would say, with Mubarak, and even to an extent, when you look at Iraq, these kind of figures who really kind of have an ironclad, there just seems to be just this enormous vacuum, and it's difficult to find other leaders to come in. Is that a true case? I mean,
well, I think that sort of one-man, strong-man system gives a stability that's very illusory. It's a very brittle stability that's held together by one man, really by force. Once you take him out of the equation, things are all bets are off, right? So I think in the long term, unless you have a real political opening where you have people that really have buy-in to what their state looks like, what their government looks like, you won't have that kind of stability. So we're in that tough process right now where we haven't quite made it through the gates to get there, but I think that's where a lot of these countries are working.
Finding those future leaders still a journey. Thank you so much for coming in, Cole. Really appreciate it.